Hi, I'm Professor Laws, and I want to welcome you to this part of our video series on taking care of patients with infectious respiratory diseases, where we're focusing on how COVID-19 enters the body and your cells. Now, the main mode of transmission is what you breathe in. So you breathe in aerosol droplets. Now, these come from a patient who's usually symptomatic. So they may cough, sneeze, or talk around you, and then you breathe in those droplets. Now, this is the kind of stuff that gives me nightmares because SARS CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, could remain viable in the air for up to 3 hours. Now, tuberculosis is up to 6 hours, but this one is still 3 hours is a really long time for this virus to kind of hang around where I might walk through and breathe it in. That's why governments have taken such severe exercises as to say shelter in place, don't go out, and social distance. This is what they're talking about. So the main mode of transmission, how this virus gets into your body, is generally through being inhaled from somebody who's coughed, sneezed, or talked in the same environment. Now, SARS-CoV-2 can also live on surfaces, cardboard, hard surfaces, and we'll talk about that in our transmission video. So you also want to be careful that you can have it on your hands, and when you touch your face, you can also introduce it into your body. But the main mode of transmission is aerosol. Now let's talk about the differences between bacteria and viruses. Now, not all bacteria are this cute. Actually, none of them are, but I want this to make a point. Bacteria are living single-cell organisms. They can be destroyed by antibiotics. That's the medications that we use, antibiotics, against these living things. Now, there's some of these bugs that are really not as cute. They're very resistant to bacteria, like VRE or MRSA. That's vancomycin-resistant Enterococcus or methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. But for the most part, we have a lot more drugs that can treat bacteria. Now, viral infections, look at these guys. They're kind of living, non-living things. That's why I put a zombie picture up there for you, because they have genetic material. They have DNA or RNA, but they don't have any other cellular material. So while bacteria, we can knock them out with antibiotics and they're living single-cell organisms, these guys, think of them more like zombies. Because they don't have any other of their own cellular material, they hijack our body cells. And when they hijack our cells, they force our cells to make copies of them. So viruses hijack your body cells. They force your body cells to make copies of the virus. And then these virus copies are released into your body. Now let's look at this SARS-CoV-2, the crown virus. Remember, it gets its name because of those spiky proteins that are all around the outside. When you look at this underneath an electron microscope, it kind of looks like a crown. And this is pretty big for an RNA virus. It's one of the largest. So we've got some names on there: RNA, N protein, HE protein, S, M, and E proteins in that viral envelope on the right of your screen. Again, I want you to pay attention to the S protein. We've talked about it before in some of our other videos, but it's the S protein that really is the key to how the SARS-CoV-2 virus wreaks havoc on your body. Now, a scientist came up with this analogy, and I want to share it with you. So this wasn't my original idea, but I just wanted to share it with you. If you think about your body as the house, the human body is the house, and the robber, the person trying to break in, is the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Okay, so you with me so far? Good deal. We got your body as the house. We got that nasty virus as the robber trying to break in. So AC2 is the doorknob on the house's door. Now I'll explain more about that, what AC2 is, but for now I want you to think AC2 is the connection point, and this is when that S protein is going to come back into play. So AC2 is angiotensin converting enzyme 2. Now, it's usually expressed by your epithelial cells of the intestine, your kidney, blood vessels, and lungs. Before we go on to the next point, those are kind of some clues of where you'll see symptoms of COVID-2. But let's focus on where they're most abundantly expressed. They're in the type 2 alveolar cells of the lungs. Okay, so we know that this COVID-2 disease is caused by SARS CoV-2. SARS CoV-2 enters your body because you breathe it in, usually from someone who's coughed, sneezed, or talked in this environment up to the last 3 previous hours. When it gets into my respiratory system, it's going to enter in, connect by that S protein to the ACE2s. The biggest problem is a lot of this ACE2 is present in the type 2 alveolar cells of my lungs, the place where CO2 and O2 exchange happens. And when this virus gets rocking and rolling, you're going to have a lot less of AC2 in human cells, which is probably part of what causes the severe lung damage in some people. Okay, so you breathe it in, it gets in your system. The S proteins of the virus connect to the ACE2, and where it's most predominant is in my lungs, and that's why you have severe lung involvement. Now, since it hijacks our respiratory cells, they're particularly sticky and good at it. I want you to remember that. That's why I've got just kind of a virus fun drawing of the year 2019 there to remind you that's what COVID-19 is. I've got ACE2 to remind you that's where it connects. Those S proteins connect. And I wanted to make sure we gave credit to Quang Zhao. He is the research fellow who found the connection of the S protein to the respiratory cells called ACE2. So that is incredible that they were so quickly able to make that discovery, and I wanted to make sure they got credit for their work. Now, he found this connection, but I want you to know that the molecular bond between SARS-CoV-2 spike protein and AC2, there's some similarities between what we have with SARS-CoV-2 and the SARS outbreak in 2003. So both of these are coronaviruses. You can see they've got their spiky proteins on the outside. But the researchers are looking at what the similarities are, what the differences are, and this may be the key to finding better and more effective treatments for these viral infections. All right, well, thanks for hanging with me. Let's review this setup. So the main mode of transmission is inhalation of aerosol droplets from patients who are symptomatic with the infectious disease. Remember, they may not show symptoms and you can still pick it up. You may also pick it up off of a hard surface, so be careful about touching your face with your hands. Now, bacteria are living single-cell organisms that can be treated with antibiotics. Viruses are living, non-living things. They have genetic material, but they have to hijack our cells and force those cells to replicate themselves or the virus in order to survive. Now, the connection of the S protein of the SARS-CoV-2 to angiotensin converting enzyme 2, or ACE2, is the entry point where it really starts to wreak havoc into your body's cells. ACE2 is expressed by the epithelial cells of your intestine, kidney, blood vessels, and lungs, but it is most abundant in the type 2 alveolar cells in your lungs. So because the virus induces a decrease or a lessening of the amount of AC2 in human cells, that might be the link to what causes severe damage in some clients. So thanks for watching this video today.